Welcome to this week's episode. It is my honor to be your host, Dr. Katie Williams, with Dr. Williams LLC and the Dr. Williams podcast. If you want to keep this show up and running, please take a moment to follow the show, leave a rating and a review, and share it with somebody that you think would enjoy listening. This show is about highlighting what I consider to be the most valuable form of communication. And it's something we all have, whether we're tapped into it or not. That is, intuition. Let's jump right in and see how today's guest utilizes their unique ability to tap into their intuition and how they use it to serve others. Make sure to listen to the end to find out how you can work with today's guest. I'm here today with Kait Merryman, and she is going to do a reading for me, which I'm really excited about because she has experience with human design and astrology. And you guys know I've had a human design reading before, but we didn't touch on the astrology piece. So I'm excited to hear about that. But I'm also excited to show you guys how a different person can interpret the same chart, because there's a lot of intuition that comes with these readings. So that just goes to show that it doesn't matter if you've had it done before, but having it done with another person will give you different information. So I'm going to give Kait a chance to introduce herself. Hi, Kait. How you doing?
Hi, so my name is Kait Merryman. I am the owner of Kait Merryman Art, which is funny 'cause it's just my name. But so it's weird saying it like that. But I'm a brand strategy designer and illustrator primarily. And I actually, through my business, I don't offer readings. So I used my astrology chart, my natal chart, to determine for myself like that this is just not a good time to be offering that and providing that as a service, primarily because of my age. I have not experienced a Saturn return yet, as I'm only 23 years old. So I don't feel right charging people for spiritual advice or guidance through astrology or human design yet, but maybe I'll reevaluate in a few years. But I like doing it for fun, so.
Well, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate that you're willing to do it for me. And I'm curious because your input, like you said, you've been using your chart and that's been guiding your journey. So I really want to hear your interpretation for me. The podcast is fairly new. You know, I've started my spiritual journey a little less than a year ago. My awakening started. And taking this path has not been the way I thought I was going to go. I mean, I have my doctorate in psychology. You'd think I'd be doing that, right? But I'm not. I'm on the podcast talking about spirituality and mental health. But so I'm really excited to hear what you can kind of enlighten me about based on my chart.
Yeah, I'm excited. When I first pulled up your chart, I saw some things that jumped right out at me, that are really interesting. So, if you're ready, I can just get right into it.
Yeah, I'm ready if you're ready. Are you able to share
Yeah.
your screen so we can see everything?
I can.
Okay.
I forgot that this has that. That is so cool. Yeah, I can. Okay. We'll do astrology. So this is your chart. I have it pulled up here. I think we can look at it like that. That's fine. So I'm using the Placidus system. That's what I normally use. Sometimes I'll use whole sign houses. You'll get a kind of different result depending, but I typically just stick to the Placidus system instead of whole sign houses.
How did you learn to read, first of all? Like, what was it that got you into this, and how'd you learn to, I mean, to me, this looks like a bunch of symbols, and I wouldn't know the first thing about it.
I have like a notebook and I would write all of the signs and like the archetypes and the ruling planet of each sign. And then I would write all the planets and like their kind of meanings. And that's kind of how I started learning.
So this is specific to me where these symbols are in this circle. So someone else's birthday would bring up something else.
Yeah, even the birth time, it'll be completely different. So a lot of people think like, oh, my sun sign is my sign. So your sun is, it looks like it's in Pisces, just barely. So a lot of people think, oh, my sun sign, that's like my sign. Actually, what's more accurate to you is your rising sign. So you'll see here, I don't know if you can you see my mouse or no? Okay, cool. So you'll see here, this is your ascendant. So like the way I like to describe it to people is you think like the earth is going around the sun, but the earth is also spinning on its own axis as well, right? So where you are on the planet as it's spinning on its own axis, that kind of determines like your ascendant. So every about like 1 to 2 hours, depending on the sign, some signs are shorter, some signs are longer. This will actually change. So somebody, you were born around midnight. Somebody born at 2 a.m. would have a completely different ascendant, and it would actually shift their entire chart. So even somebody born on the same day as you, a couple hours later, will have a completely different chart.
That's amazing, because with the human design, my friends and I, we were playing with human design this last weekend, and one of my friends couldn't remember if she was born AM or PM. So she put in 8 AM and then she put in 8 PM, and the chart was the same for human design, even though it's 12 hours difference. So I thought that was really interesting. But with this chart, it could be completely different just in a small amount of time.
Yeah, definitely. Even by minutes, people make the argument, oh, like what about twins? I kind of think having the same placements, right, even a few minutes apart, that does change things a little bit, because the ascendant moves very fast, like comparative to the rest of the chart. And also there's like a million different interpretations for the same placement, or where a planet is. And also there's different interactions, even if it's just like a few degrees off. So because I do hear that argument a lot about twins, and it does make me think like, like that is interesting, but sometimes it does like present very differently, but it can, because astrology is like very fluid, and it's very scientific too. It's not really like up for interpretation. It's kind of like math spirituality. I don't know if that's like a good way of describing it.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, I like that.
Hope one day I can learn to like actually draw a chart like without having to use the calculator, because I know some astrologers can do that, and I think it's so crazy.
That would be amazing and incredible. So you, when looking at that, you called it the ascendant. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So looking at the ascendant, can you point to it again with your mouse? I'm like pointing with my finger, but nobody can see me.
It's right here.
So, okay, that's that black line right there?
Yeah.
Okay, and what does that tell you?
So it'll tell you, it's like you. It sets up the whole rest of your chart. So it's your physical appearance, your personality. You actually have quite a bit of Sagittarius energy in your chart. I don't know if that's shocking to you or not.
It is a little, yeah.
Are you very tall?
I'm about 5'7".
You're pretty tall. Okay. See, I'm wondering because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and you also have Jupiter, this little 4 looking thing right here. That's Jupiter right on top of your ascendant. So your ascendant can be like your physical body, your personality, just you as a person. So you could either have like a very big outgoing personality, or you can have like, you can just be like really tall.
Interesting.
Uranus is also right here with it. So that kind of like can be like fluctuation in how you look. That's what that says to me, because they're all right on top of each other here. And when planets are super close together, some people say like within 10 degrees, I say 3 degrees is like what I count as being conjunct, like on top of each other. And these are all 10, 10, and 9. So all right on top of each other. The energies from those planets and the energy of the ascendant, they all kind of combine when they're on top of each other like that. So you actually have a few conjunctions. I would count these as conjunct, I think. They're about 5 degrees apart.
And when something's conjunct, does that just mean it's stronger?
they're really close together at the time that you were born. So like Jupiter and Uranus were right in the same spot in Sagittarius at the time that you were born.
Okay.
So
And that defines the person in a certain way. There's like a power to that.
yeah, so I wouldn't say it's more or less powerful, like in my own personal opinion from the research that I've done. I would say it just kind of combines the energies of the two and like makes it kind of they affect each other in a
Gotcha.
way that they
Okay.
wouldn't if they were like, you know,
Far
some
apart.
not interacting. Another way you can see all of these planets, how they're interacting are these lines in the center. So you have a opposition between all of these. Your ascendant, your Jupiter and your Uranus are opposite your moon, which I also have this placement in my chart where my moon is really close to my descendant. So your descendant, your ascendant is you, right? Your descendant is like the people you attract. And then the other two lines that you're seeing here, your IC line, this is more like your fourth house. So like family, childhood, that kind of thing. And then your MC, your midhaven, that is career. So your 10th house is kind of over career. So those are kind of like the main things. You have a
Okay.
lot going on in your first house, which so do I in my own chart.
What does that mean?
It'll impact your personality. So
Okay.
like I said, Jupiter, that's like kind of indicative of like a bigger personality because Jupiter is the planet of growth and expansion. Jupiter is the largest planet. And so that's the kind of energy of Jupiter. And then we have Neptune in your south node. Your south node, I've heard people say different things about the north and south nodes. How I like to interpret it is like your north node is more in this lifetime, in this incarnation, this is something that's going to be important to you and something that you should focus on. And I think of the South Node not as something that you should stay away from, but something that you've probably already mastered or are already gifted in that you don't really need to focus on, but you can use it as a tool to get more progress with your North Node, if that makes sense, because they're always opposite each other. So your north or your south node is in your first house. So I feel like I get the vibe that you're a person that's pretty comfortable with themselves and their own skin, a big personality, and people are really drawn to you because of this Jupiter right on your ascendant. A lot of people are very drawn to you and your personality and just yourself. This is clearly like you as a person. You're very likable and people feel very drawn to you. So your south node or your south node is opposite your north node here in the seventh. They're always opposite. I don't know why I said it like that. But your seventh house is the house of marriage and partnerships. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just marriage. It can be like business partnerships. It's like legally, what's the word? Like legally tying yourself to another person. So like if you had like a business partner or somebody that you were working with on like a huge project, that could also fall into the seventh house. But it's serious, committed relationships with other people in your life. So this kind of being a focus, you attracting all of these people is going to benefit you in kind of forming those really important partnerships. So going back around to the second house, you have Lilith here. This is an asteroid at 0 degree. It's at 0 degrees. Wow. In your second house. So Lilith is kind of like, I think of it as like the skeletons in your closet. So the second house is material possessions. So this could kind of present itself as either issues with money or like money blockages that you feel like you might need to overcome, or just physical possession. So like it could present itself in a lot of ways thinking about it. It could either be like feeling, and I don't really even get the vibe that it's like, oh, I feel like I don't have enough. It's almost like it's hard to say because there's no other planets in this house, but it is ruled by and this is another thing too that I forgot to mention. So each house here, they're all numbered on the inside. Each line, wherever it falls, that'll tell you the sign that's ruling that house. So your second house is in Capricorn. And Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which is the planet of like restriction and structure. So that kind of tells me that maybe like you have some, I wouldn't say wounds because that's more of like a Chiron thing, but just something with money being kind of restricted.
When you said blocks, when you mentioned the word blocks, that resonated with me. That's something I've been working on, like vibrationally, trying to allow for more money to come into my experience, but it's definitely a block that I have.
Yeah. So the positives of having, because I also have I don't have a Capricorn ruled second house, but in my own chart I have Saturn in my second house in whole sign houses. So with Saturn kind of affecting the second house, a lot of people think, oh, you just like won't be able to make money, or you'll have issues with money, or you'll have a hard time saving money, or just issues with money. That might be true, but if you're able to like heal those blockages like in this lifetime, or kind of like open yourself up to that, Saturn is also the planet of karma. And that's how I like to look at it for myself, because I don't want to sit here and think I'm just going to be broke forever because I have Saturn affecting my second house.
Right.
It's just, it comes in karmic ways. So it's interesting too, because I feel like I feel like Earth is kind of like a school, right? We come here to learn lessons. And I've read so many books about like past life regressions and things like that. And I've heard a lot of stories of people like coming back in. So like they'll come in as a rich person in one life and then a poor person in the other life, so they can experience both. But I feel like when Saturn's affecting the second house, it's almost like you experience both in the same life, if that makes sense. And that might not be for everybody. Some people might not learn those lessons that get them there, but like that's my goal with my chart. So I figured I'd share.
That's awesome.
That's my positive spin on what might be not
on
a
Saturn in your second house. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you actually have Saturn. Saturn's actually over here in your 11th, which is that's like the house of technology and networking. And it's also in retrograde. Interesting. Okay, my Saturn's also in retrograde.
What does that mean?
So it kind of affects the energy of the planet. And also I'm sure you've heard people talk about like Mercury retrograde, right?
Yes. Yeah, I have a good friend. She was always texting me, Mercury's in retrograde, watch out. Like
yeah. So if you have Mercury in retrograde, for example, in your birth chart, where's Mercury? You don't. It's stationary. Like, or it was going direct forward. But say you were to have like Mercury in retrograde in your chart, those periods where everybody's freaking out because Mercury's in retrograde and like you're getting a flat tire and your car's breaking down and like your computer keeps crashing and nothing's working. The people that have Mercury in retrograde in their chart, I have found they are like totally fine during Mercury retrograde. In fact, it's the only time for them that they feel normal. Saturn and Jupiter go retrograde less frequently than other planets. So yeah,
I wanted to jump back down to the second house. I don't mean to interrupt you, but you had this moment where you were like, oh, it's 0 degrees, and you were like, wow, like what does that mean when it's 0 degrees?
So not everyone believes in this. I just want to preface with that. Not all astrologers like use critical degree theory. I kind of like it. I think it's interesting way of explaining things. I like to see when people have 0 degrees in certain things in their chart, because to me, 0 degrees is the most pure form of the sign. And you have this 0 degree Lilith in Aquarius. So it's the most pure form of Aquarius. Aquarius is kind of like, and if you want to look at it in terms of signs and not houses, having Lilith in Aquarius in that sense, I feel like Aquarius is very much like the quirky.
Okay, so I have to share a little bit. I have a quirk. I have a weird quirk, and people are like, "What is this all about?" But I have a mannequin, and his name is Manny, and he lives in our living room, and I dress him up, and he just has this spot in our living room, and people are always like, "Why do you have a mannequin?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I just like it." So are you talking like quirky like that?
Yeah, but Lilith is there, and that's, like I said, like skeletons in your closet. So I mean, you
So
are sharing
quirkiness, but
that you have a
skeletons.
mannequin.
Yeah.
Yeah, like things you don't really want to tell people, kind of,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
and it could be like, oh, like I have these weird things about me that I just kind of want to keep private. It could present itself that way. I feel like everybody kind of does, so it's kind of like a
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I'm not going to share.
That sounds right.
Yeah. I think we hit it.
So your third house, this is actually really good for podcasting
Oh,
right here.
great.
So your third house just barely is ruled by Aquarius over here. I'm like, what is its name? It's like spiky. I'm so
Looks like
tired.
water.
So even though, since we're reading in Placidus, this would all be shifted in whole sign houses, but since that's the chart we're looking at, you do have Mercury and your sun in Pisces over here, but they're also in the third house. So the third house is the house of siblings, and also I think of it as like group stuff, like community vibes. I like third house placements for podcast related things, and these are really good planets, I think, to have in your third house. So you have Mercury, which is the planet of communication and travel. So Mercury being in the third house to me is like pretty positive, I'd say. And it just is good communication. People, in group settings and community settings can usually understand what you're trying to get across pretty well. And then with your sun in the third house as well, the sun is kind of like ego, and to me it's like a Leo planet, so it's outgoing energy and just like personality, and that's also in the third house as well. So those kind of being next to each other, pretty close together, that just tells me like when you're talking to people in like a podcast format and you have groups of people, or if you're in a group and you're talking, people understand you, and they pick up on what you're trying to communicate pretty well.
Well, that's comforting, considering that I've been doing a lot of that lately. That's how I'd like it to come across.
Yeah, it's really good placement to have for podcasting, I would say. And then your fourth house, like I said, it's more childhood and family. So you have Mars and Venus. So these are pretty good planets, actually, for I would say Mars and Saturn. So if I had to pick like the two planets that are usually the most difficult, I mean, everyone has them in their chart somewhere, so it's not like anywhere is like better. I mean, there are definitely worse places to have those planets,
Sure.
but like
Yeah.
everyone has them. Mars and Saturn are probably the two most difficult planets. So you do have Mars in your fourth house of like family and childhood, but you also have Venus, which is like love, art, and beauty. I am ruled by Mars because I'm actually an Aries rising myself. And it's also my most heavily aspected planet in my chart. So Mars is also like on a more positive note, it's the planet of like passion, and on a more negative note, it's aggression. So take with that what you will. Those are the planets in your fourth house. So you have Venus, which is a very nice like art, beauty, romance, love planet, and then aggressive Mars in there as well.
Okay. So you looking at that and looking at those planets in that house, what would you say? What would you kind of like, okay, is your family like this or your childhood like this? What would you assume it was like?
So the good thing is your fourth house is in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. So that's actually like a pretty good place for Mars to be. Like in terms of like what sign it's in the fourth house. It could be like I would say, I'm trying to think, because like for example, like with Saturn, the restrictiveness or structure can cause people to like move around a lot as children and not really feel in one place, but this doesn't feel like that to me. It's more Venus and Mars like tied together. It's almost like two separate energies, like in the household, like one very loving, like nurturing and like art energy, and then one that can be like kind of aggressive and passionate. So I don't know if that resonates with like childhood, if there were figures like that in your childhood, but that's just kind of what it feels like to me.
Yeah, for the listeners, and I've touched on this a little bit on the podcast, but my parents got divorced when I was 4 years old, and I went back and forth between their houses like several times a week. So it was a very kind of unstable kind of situation. There was a lot of change and difference, and I think that makes sense what you're saying.
Good. I see. I hate talking about the fourth house because sometimes people have placements and I'm like, oh, I don't want to be upsetting. Okay, so your fifth house, you don't have any planets in the fifth house. This is the house of like it's the house of children and creativity. That people think sometimes they're like, oh, if my fifth house is empty, I won't have children. That's not what that means. But it's in Taurus, which is ruled by Venus, which is like a very like I said, like it's like art and beauty and romance, and it's like a very loving planet. It's one of my favorites. So being that your fifth house is ruled by Taurus, it's a positive energy in the fifth house. In the sixth, you have Chiron. So Chiron is like your ultimate like wounds. He's the wounded healer. So this is where you might have some like work to do. So your sixth house is like your day-to-day, your day job. It's like not your career, it's like what you do on a daily basis. So to me, having both Chiron and your moon in the sixth house, this could mean like maybe even like trouble kind of sticking to like a schedule, or maybe even trouble like if your schedule's broken, like that's really difficult for you. Something like that. And your moon,
I do like routines, for sure.
Yeah. It's usually one way or the other. It's either I can't stick to a schedule for my life, or it's if my schedule gets ruined, it's gonna like ruin my day for no reason. Like it's usually one or the other.
Yep, I relate with that.
And then with your moon in Gemini on your descendant, I already kind of explained this is a really positive placement for like the kind of people you attract. Again, I feel like you attract some pretty good people actually, for the most part. So your moon is like your internal self. It's kind of like your intuition, and it's a feminine energy too. As well, it's traditionally tied with Cancer. Yours is in Gemini, and it's on your descendant, so you might just like attract some really important people to like your heart. That's what that says to me anyway. We already kind of went over the seventh house and the North Node, and kind of focusing on those partnerships that are like legally bound partnerships, either albeit like through business or through marriage. And then you have, this is your lot of fortune. I don't really know much about lot of fortune, to be honest with you. It's not, I forget even what it is. It's basically like where you're said to have kind of good luck in your chart. This is in your ninth house and your ninth house rules over like school and travel. So there's that. And then your 10th house.
So it's not career? I thought you said that one was career.
10 is career, 9 is travel and your higher education. So school after like
Okay. And I
high
have good luck
school,
there. Okay.
Yeah. And it's in Libra,
Got
which
it.
is a good I like Libra. Libra's ruled by Venus, so I like Libra. I like air signs a lot. I'm kind of a little bit biased there. Your 10th house is career. So this is where you can see too. Can I zoom in? I can, just a little bit. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit more. So over here, you can see Saturn is just barely not in your 10th house, but in your 10th house, you have Pluto. So this is Pluto. And Pluto is the planet of like it's almost like a phoenix, kind of is how I like to think of it. It's like rebirth, like complete and total transformation. So to me, this says probably a pretty drastic career switch at some point. If it hasn't already happened, I would say anticipate it. Maybe.
I think it's already happened. I mean, I was a therapist and now I'm a podcaster. Yeah. So kind of a big switch.
Yeah, there you go. That makes perfect sense.
Would you like a solo hindsight episode related to this specific reading? If you do, send me an email at hello@drwilliamspodcast.com, and all you have to put in the email is hindsight and the kind of reading or my guest's name, and I'll know which one you're interested in. As I produced the Intuitive Wonderland, time went on before I actually launched it. So I have a unique perspective on each of these readings and how they played out in time. Most of these readings were recorded a year ago in the past. So I can offer my insight into the information that was provided to me and how the information has played out in time in my life. If this is something you're interested in, I'm happy to share that with you. Please send me an email and let me know. All right, let's get back to the reading.
I know with a Libra midheaven, that's actually like good for because Libra, again, ruled by Venus, it's like a very loving planet. So for you to go into like being a therapist makes perfect sense. But then you also have Pluto as like this huge career switch, and that's where that energy is. And then with 11th house, this is like networking, friendships, technology, things like that. So that's where Saturn lies. So since you have a night chart, usually like a good rule of thumb for if you ever decide to read charts, if you were born at night, so, and if you're not really sure, like if you were born like as the sun was setting, you can tell by where the sun is in relation to this ascendant descendant line. So you're clearly born at night. Usually that'll tell you which of these two planets is going to be more challenging. So since you were born at night, Saturn is probably going to be a little bit more challenging. And there's also more planets aspecting Saturn than Mars. So I would say this is like probably one of the bigger struggle planets for you. And it's just barely in your 11th house, in that's Scorpio.
Okay, so when you say that Saturn is challenging for me, is that what you meant when you're like, when Saturn's in retrograde, that's something that's going to affect me?
It will. I have the same placement. My Saturn's also in retrograde, and I don't feel like it affects me as much as like the personal planets. So like what I would determine to be your personal planets, obviously your ascendant is very important. Your sun, your moon, your Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Those are like the planets that are going to affect you and your personality the most. These outer planets that are more like they move a lot slower. So like Pluto, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, they move really, really slowly. Like especially Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, I think, moves the slowest out of all of them. Like whole generations almost of people will have those placements. Saturn will affect you more than those planets. But like I said, everybody has it in their chart somewhere. Yours, it just happens to fall under like technology and networking with people and networking relationships. So yeah, but I kind of just went in a circle. You do have some oppositions, like I said. Moon opposite Jupiter is actually, like, I think that's very positive. It's really strong intuition, to me anyway, because the moon kind of represents like your inner self and your intuition and who you are on the inside. And really, like, the biggest thing, I think, like the most positive, is it just seems like you have a really, really strong sense of self. And you attract a lot of like really good people from what I'm seeing. I think those are like the biggest like positive takeaways from your chart. So I hope that was helpful.
That was amazing. Yeah, I've never had my chart read like that. That was amazing. And so I want to throw this in there. I know you pulled up the human design. If you could just look at that and tell me, like, oh yeah, this relates with this on your astrology chart, like, just so we can see how it combines and tells you how they work together.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie, I might have to like look some stuff up for human design, because I am not nearly as versed in human design as I am astrology. So the first thing that I notice, I always look at these arrows first. And this top right arrow over here is pointing away from you. So I have this as well in my chart. And this actually speaks to the type of manifester that you are. So there are two types. The arrow can either be pointing inward towards yourself or outward away from you. Since yours is pointing outward, that means that you're a non-specific manifester. So as opposed to specific manifestors, like those people do really good with like scripting out, writing down exactly what they want to bring in. Non-specific manifestors just kind of, you have to kind of manifest based on the feeling, not the actual thing that you want. Like, because non-specific manifestors, I feel like as one myself, I feel like it's kind of like I almost don't know what I want. Like, I don't really know like what the best thing for me is, but like I know that the universe knows, so I'm like, just make sure I'm happy, I guess. Like
Yeah.
so non-specific manifesting methods, like outside of like scripting and things like that. That's like my favorite thing to tell people, because it's really important for if you're trying to manifest things.
Yeah. If you want to create in your life, you got to know how you best do it, for sure.
Yeah. Your profile. I like to read this to people. There's a website that I use. I'm going to stop sharing for a second so I can find this website for you, because I want to read this to you. I read it to everybody when I look up their charts just for fun. And I think it's really, it just gives you such a detailed description. So the website is called manifestinghumandesign.com. And the one that I'm reading from, so yours, you have a 1-4 profile. And I should probably touch on the fact that you're a generator too, because that's like the most broad thing in human design that everybody talks about, is like the 5 types. Let me share my screen again.
And this is a website anybody could go to.
Both of them are, yeah. So I'm gonna talk about this one really quick just to give you like a synopsis, and then I just like, if we have enough time, I'll go back over to the other tab that I have and share that, and I'll just read it. But both are just websites that you can find literally anywhere just from Googling your human design stuff. But yeah, this is your chart.
Are you seeing anything that kind of pops out to you that relates to the astrology chart?
I would say the sacral authority. So most people are either sacral or emotional authority. There are some people that are non-defined, and I think there's a third one too. or I think mental authority is one of them as well. So your authority is kind of like how you make decisions, right? So oh, it literally says that. That's so funny. So it's how you make decisions. So, for example, I have an emotional authority, so I might make decisions based off of how I'm feeling. Yours is sacral, so literally, like it says, like gut feeling. You make decisions based on like gut feelings, intuition, stuff like that. I feel like that translates into your astrology, like your natal chart, very well, because like I said, the one of the biggest things I saw in your chart was like your personality. You have some really strong and prominent placements like right on your ascendant and descendant. So that makes sense, like just being very sure of yourself and like having those gut feelings and having the ability to trust them. That's something I do not have. So that would be the first thing to jump out at me.
So that might be something that a lot of intuitives have. That would be something we would have in common because it's a strong knowing of self and trusting how you feel or know things, right? That's the intuition aspect.
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like I have worked really hard at strengthening my intuition, but I definitely did not have the natural ability to just listen to my gut. It was something I had to kind of train myself to do as an emotional authority. It doesn't mean like if you don't have a sacral authority, I don't feel like it means that your intuition is bad or anything. It's just not natural to like the way that you function. Like if you have emotional authority, you're going to want to make decisions based on how you're feeling, which sometimes like it can be good or bad, but I feel like people with sacral authority kind of have a little bit of an advantage because usually like I feel like their gut feelings are usually right. So
I usually trust myself for the most part. Like I trust my intuition to a pretty big degree, to where it could be really hard for somebody to convince me otherwise, where I'm like, well, no, I pretty much feel this way. I'm going to go with that.
yeah, no, I totally that makes perfect sense with the chart too. So your strategy is to respond to other people. That's based on the fact that you're a generator. So each type has a different strategy. Generators is to respond, projectors is to like wait for the invitation, and so forth. So you're here to respond to others. And also the cool thing about generators, which I think you can probably tell from your chart too, given that Jupiter is directly on top of your ascendant, these are that could be interpreted as like people who have a lot of energy. The cool thing about generators and manifesting generators in human design is they just have an endless amount of energy. They can just go. Like it's insane. As a projector, I don't have that and I get tired so easily, so fast. And they're called generators because you guys can like actually like make your own energy. Like it's very cool. It's based on, so like where it says type, this is actually based on your aura. So if you want, like I can look this up later and show you, but if we don't have enough time, you can literally Google like human design type generator aura in Google Images, and it'll show you the different human design types and what type of aura they have, and it explains like why you're a generator.
Oh, neat.
Essentially, it's really cool. So like it shows all 5 types and how the auras kind of differ, how the energy is kind of taken in for each individual person. So that's something that's pretty cool.
When I learned that I was a generator, I was a little surprised actually at first because when I was a therapist, I was tired all the time, and I got really sick. It was not a good fit for me. But I think that knowing now, after learning this about myself, I think that like podcasting and my spiritual kind of energy and focusing in that way does generate energy for me. I just had to find the right fit Whereas before it was draining, and now I feel like I could generate my own energy.
Exactly. And that's the really important thing about having a sacral authority too, is if you are kind of going against like what your gut wants you to do, like you're not going to see that life force energy that's like the signature generator thing. I've seen so many people on like social media, especially on like TikTok and Instagram and other places, who have kind of just said, oh, well, you know, I spent all this money and I have this giant degree and like I just have to use it. And they just force themselves to like do things that they weren't really like feeling right in their body. And like that, you're not going to get that life force energy from something when you're not utilizing like your authority and your strategy in the right way. That's what makes human design so cool, is it can tell you like who you are and like how your body's going to feel at your absolute best. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow.
And then your not self theme, that's interesting. I don't know if that's like a typo or what. But this is what you're feeling when you are not living in your design. So kind of what I just described, when you are not responding, using your strategy, utilizing your sacral. Frustration is what you'll be feeling. So if you ever start to feel frustrated, you have to just step back and like ask yourself, am I responding? Am I listening to my gut? Am I following my strategy and my authority? And chances are, if you're feeling frustrated, then, you know, maybe not. For digestion, these are like the fun ones that I like. Digestion is alternating appetite. So I feel like these are people who snack like a lot. I don't know if that resonates or not. Mine is high sound. I'm supposed to eat where it's loud. It's the only type that benefits from eating in a restaurant. It made me laugh so hard because I think that's accurate. But it'll tell you.
Wow,
even
interesting.
if you don't listen, even if you don't like listen to that, because I know somebody who I read their chart and they had low light as their digestion thing, and they like to eat like in the middle of the night, and I was like, you got to just let yourself do that. I know it's weird and like it seems like it'd be really bad for you, but just see if it makes a difference. And she was like, it actually, like, my stomach hurts so much less. And I was like, that's insane. So if you're not like snacking all the time and having an alternating appetite and like embodying that, then you might not be digesting the best that you possibly can.
Interesting. I'm really not much of a snacker. Looks like I need to start.
Yeah, I would just try it out and see, because some people they're like, really, and then they try it and they're like, oh, actually this works a lot better for me than I thought it would. Like mine being high sound, I used to have this friend who would always tell me, she'd be like, don't, you know, watch TV when you eat, because then you'll overeat and like you'll get distracted and blah blah. And then like my human design type said, high sound, eat when it's loud. If it's not loud, like put some music on or watch TV. Wow, that's while you're
amazing.
Eating. Yeah, it really helped me, and I know that's, and it like
helps
a rule.
You digest,
you're not supposed to,
because that's your type.
Exactly. So I just try it.
That's
just
cool.
Try it out.
That's really cool. A couple of my other friends, they had like, one of them was hot foods and one of them was cold foods. And so then I thought, well, I mean, your cold foods, does that just mean you can live off ice cream and popsicles and like really get into it?
I'm not really sure. I think it's so funny because like my boyfriend, I think his is, it's either hot or cold. I think it was hot foods. And it's crazy because whenever we get leftovers somewhere, oh my gosh, he's so weird. He'll just eat it without heating it up, no matter what it is. And I'm like, you don't want to pop that in the microwave for like a minute? And he's like, it takes too long. I'm hungry now. And I'm like,
some stuff's good like that. I mean, chow mein. You can eat chow mein cold.
That's true. Some stuff is fine like that, but like other things, I'm like, you're eating cold fried chicken right now. Like, what are you doing? Like,
soup. You gotta kind of heat soup up.
Yeah. No, he's eating it cold too. And I'm like, you're nuts. That's insane. But you know, maybe he's following his authority. I don't know. Strongest sense, that's like a good one, I think, to pair with sacral, and also to pair with your birth chart, as well as like having feeling as your strongest sense, especially with, again, a lot of these I think are tied to the Jupiter conjunct ascendant placement that you have in your birth chart. And then environments, kitchens, this is mine too. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a kitchen, but like creative hubs where people kind of come together and like make stuff. So sometimes I'll, depending on what website you use, this is myhumandesign.com. Some of them will tell you, you know, art studio or cave, or like they'll say different things. But kitchen, it doesn't really have to be, yeah, see, it says whether it's literally a kitchen or an art studio or whatever. It's where people can come together and just be creative. And I think that's really fun.
Creative space. That makes sense. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting down to time, but I wanted to give you a chance to read. You said it was about the 1-4, right?
Yeah, about the 1-4. This one is usually pretty specific to people, so I'm gonna go ahead and share that screen there. So 1-4 profile is the investigator opportunist. So the 1-3 profile is busy questioning everything to find the mistakes within a system, concept, authority to point out what works and what doesn't. It is the need of the 1-4 profile to find a good functioning foundation that they can externalize to their network and to influence others in their environment and surroundings. These people must have something in their lives that works that they can externalize. They are not configured genetically like the 1-3 profile to challenge authorities and to question systems and concepts, so they will rarely challenge their parents in their childhood and later on in their lives other authorities. Their genetic command is, so to speak, find something you're good at, build yourself a solid foundation, and communicate it to the outside world so that you can influence people naturally in your environment and your network. The 4 in the 1-4 profile always wants to influence other people whom they know and who are in their close network. They are always on the lookout for others who are open to their influence. The primary function of a 1-4 profile is to convey a system/concept, not to find mistakes within it and correct them. This is the function/task of the 1-3 profile. And if the 1-4 profile tries to convey something to the other and they put it off as nonsense, the 1-4 profile will pull away, but neither will change nor reject the concepts they were conveying. As always in human design, it is crucial that someone with a 1-4 profile follows their internal strategy and authority to find the concept that's right for them, to convey it to the right people. Right means not in a moral context of right or wrong, but right or correct for this person in their uniqueness so they can naturally live out their purpose. When someone with a 1-4 profile is being guided to their mind to find the right foundation and the right people for them to convey something to, they will feel exhausted and burnt out. But if they follow their genetic strategy and authority, they will find their right foundation for externalizing, and they'll also pull the right people into their life who will be influenced by their transmission sharing in a right and enriching manner. So the reason I wanted to read this to you, and I think you're already going to pick up what I'm saying, is like exactly what you described. When you're not following your authority and your strategy and all of that human design stuff, you'll feel exhausted and burnt out. But if you do follow it, you'll pull the right people into your life. So that relates directly to what I said with your astrology chart.
Yeah, it does. Wow, that is so cool. And that's why I love this so much. You know, everybody could benefit from knowing this, whether it resonates with them or not, but I feel like it would, because you start hearing these things and you're like, yes, that's me. That's me. And then it helps you to kind of designate your direction in life and serve yourself to the best that you possibly can. The one thing in there that you were talking about, not that it's right or wrong, but it's right for you. And that's like my message on the podcast. Like, live and let other people live. What's right for you is not necessarily right for them. And we all have to find our way.
Yes.
This was really fun. I'm so excited that you did this for me. Thank you so much for being here and doing my chart. That was awesome. And I know you said you're not doing readings for people, but you do have some stuff going on that people might be interested in. So can you let people know what you're offering and how they can find you?
Yeah, so I am actually a brand strategy designer. So I design brands for businesses. My niche is I do like to work within the spiritual community still, but with other spiritual business owners who are offering those services. I like to design their brands and help them have a successful, happy, fun business time. So that's the primarily what I do. I'm also an illustrator, and I do all kinds of stuff from like book covers to stickers to like whatever you need. And if you're interested in working with me on any of that stuff, my website is kaitmerrymanart.com. I spell it weird, KAITMERRYMAN.com. But yeah, that's how you can work with me.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I think you guys should definitely check Kait out. She's wonderful. And thanks again for being here. This was such a pleasure.
Thank you. I had such a fun time. I'm glad you let me read your charts for you.
That concludes today's episode. It is my hope that you found benefit in listening to today's guest and gained a greater appreciation for the guidance of intuition in each of us. If you haven't already, please make sure to follow us on social media under Dr. Williams Podcast. Look within, trust your intuition, and allow yourself to explore all the splendor that it has to offer. This is the Intuitive Wonderland.